Okay, welcome back, everybody. So we're working on Roas and Olad, which is one of the ways of being a Chacham, and everyone is supposed to write their own. I want to share part of mine. I don't think to share the whole thing, but I think to share a little bit, which I also wrote part of with everyone in mind. I mean, some things maybe I wouldn't have written on my own, but I wanted to give a sense of how to do it if sometimes people get stuck. So we're talking about a day. From a Roas and Olad perspective, the next day really starts with when going to sleep. That's the first thing, right? It doesn't start at 7 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. or at 8:30 a.m. or 7:45. It starts with going to sleep. That's the first step of Roas and Olad, right? If you pick up a magazine, a novel, and I'm not judging anything, I'm just right. Roas and Olad is really all about being, I think it's about being realistic, like we spoke about, and another step being realistic. So if you pick up, if you need 6.5 hours of sleep and your alarm's going off at 7 o'clock and it's 12:30, and at 12:29 you pick up a novel, magazine that you really like to read, right? It's very possible that you're not going to go to sleep in 1 minute. Yeah. And even if it's 12:25 or 12:20, that's just Roas and Olad. I mean, I'm picking this up. What is this going to mean? Right. Oh, well, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking 10 minutes away. I'm not thinking 5 minutes away. That's what Roa Sinola means exactly. If you have a sensitive conversation with your spouse or child, right, and starting it at 12:25, maybe I'll make it a little bit early. Maybe my picture is too late. I'm a late guy. Let's say a lot of people go to sleep maybe 11:30. Let's say so. If you have a sensitive conversation, right, something's on your mind. Now it's okay to do that. We're not saying we should engage in it or not, but let's be real and know what. If I'm going to bring up with my wife, I'm going to bring up with my husband, I'm going to bring up with my teenager, I'm going to do something that's sensitive. 5 minutes before I want to go to sleep, I'm not going to go to sleep in 5 minutes. You might want to decide to do it anyway because it's worthwhile. But Roa Sanola means is excuse me, the difference between the Roa Sanola person and non-Roa Sanola person is the Roa Sanola person says, I understand right now that I'm forfeiting my chance to go to sleep. I'm not going to be down about it. I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to be make someone else feel uptight about it, etc. The non-Roa Sanola person says, it's 12:25. I'm going to get this conversation in 5 minutes, or I'm not even thinking about the future. By the way, I just point out for those whose kids are getting older, this is one of the conundrums I find with teenagers. You want to schmooze with them, but often they aren't interested in schmoozing besides very, very late at night, just a word to the wise. They live, you might want to live like a nice kind of like hermit-like existence just with your family, but then your kids are busy and they're really not interested in you so much. And then, but they are sometimes. So you have to like go with the flow a little bit. But okay, that's just something word to the wise. It's very, very interesting. You just got my wife is an expert at that. One of my kids she likes to speak to, so she realized the ways. And I gave advice actually to someone recently. Someone asked me about a situation they're having with a child. They said take the kid for long drives because then they'll open up to you a little bit. If you want to like set up the conversation, you have to think what's gonna be. Okay, that's also a little bit of rawness and loaded. Here's another one. I know I'm sensitive to this. How much do you eat? Again, no one should think like I'm good at these things. I'm good at thinking about what they are. I'm not necessarily good at execution. I just don't want, no one should think we're together here, everybody. Yeah. How much do you eat and drink at night? That's a huge one, right? For many people, if you eat and drink a lot at night, it is going to affect your sleep, which is going to affect your performance the next day. So if you're hoping to get 6.5 hours of like solid gesund sleep, like we would say, and you eat a lot at night, and the gases are going through you, it's very possible. Or you drink a lot. My age days, I once brought a psychologist. I forgot his name to speak to the staff. Can't remember his name. Anyway, so he was a nice fellow. His name was named Morty something maybe. So he said a certain woman said to him, as a psychologist, I get nervous that I'm going to not wake up. Like she's anxious about going to sleep because she's worried about getting up. So she said, Mary, drink 6 cups of water. I personally guarantee you'll get up. That's what he said to her. But here's the point again, it's raw sanola. Like, no, I'll eat. Well, no, but your stomach's not going to be settled. Interesting. I want to tell you something very interesting. I wasn't feeling so well today. Usually I try to swim on Sundays, whatever, but I didn't go swimming today. And I found that but I wanted to rest a little bit, during the time I have that I would have usually gone swimming. And I drank a lot at my meal, and then I found I couldn't rest as well. So I realized, wow, that's also Roas and Olad. I mean, even a nap, you might it depends on people's physique, but that's part of the Roas and Olad. I'm now pumping water. Well, what difference does water make at 2 o'clock? Well, it depends. If you want to go to sleep, it could be. So that's you're always living with this sense of future, and that's what it means to be a chacham. Is that I'm Roas and Olad. I'm not just living, loosely about all these things. Let's keep going, right? Okay, so you woke up. How much time do you need to? I think I mentioned this one before, but this is a great one. How much time do you need to get to Shacharis? What time do you need to wake up? Right? Let's say I hope everybody's goal is to be on time for Shacharis. Um, some people come early, say korbanot, beautiful korbanos, gavaldik, but okay, you want to come on time to Shacharis. Well, how long does it take you to get there? So Rosh Hanolad says, I know how long it's going to take me, and I plan accordingly. And if I snooze 3 times, I am going to be late. So how long does it take? Chakras is over. How long does it take to get to your place of work or learning whatever you do? I'm Roa Sanolad. Um, which distractions do you have, and how will you avoid them? Right along the way, am I going to get distracted with something, etc. So that's the idea. Now, if you didn't, friends, if you haven't written this till now, please write one. Some of the feedback we got, and again, it's always so important for me to get feedback from and reactions, feedback, see what if things are working for people. It's extremely helpful, and you'll have this chus that it could be, tens of other people will be helped by your feedback. So, which is very, very nice. Someone said how good it is to write things. I see Ritzi Meyer. I've noticed in the last few years reading him that he always talks about this. A lot of things. Writing is such a good thing to take ideas from the world of like dreams and reality. When you write it, it's like, oh, there it is. Like here it is. Like here I have this list for myself. So yeah, but otherwise things like, oh yeah, I'm kind of raw Sonola. I'm not. Write things down. Okay. And that's good advice for a lot of things. You have a Kabbalist. I might have mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. We're going to talk about that in a second. You make Kabbalist, you receive accept upon yourself in Yom Kippur. Some people depressingly can't remember what their Kabbalah was, and that happens. But if at least if you wrote it down, you can revisit it. You can check. You can. Sometimes you forget a detail of your Kabbalah. Was it half an hour? Was it an hour? Was it this? Was it that? What I? When you write things down, it has that amazing effect. I think I found the Chazal, by the way. I think so. I was excited. Obviously, Chazal say Aizehu Chacham haroa esen olad. But besides that, I was thinking of a mission of us, which I think really says it. The mission advises Al Tomer Kishe Efne Eshne Shemaloti Paneh. I think that's the point, right? Don't say, right? Meaning, even when you would have a good cheshbon, don't say I'm going to learn in the future, which many people say. When I have free time, I'm going to learn. Al Tomar Kishe Efne Eshne. Don't say when I'll be free. Panui. Lifnot. Don't say when I'll be free, I will learn. Shemaloti Paneh. Maybe you won't be Pones. I think it's really basic. I was excited. I think that mission is basically giving the wisdom of Roas and Olad, meaning Roas and Olad means I might not be free, right? I could be busy. Right now, obviously, we're not talking about an onus. A person is an onus is an onus. A person is in an unbelievable, an absolute coerced position. You're in an absolute coerced position. The mission is not referring to that. But the mission is referring to something where it's not absolutely coerced. You have some control of your time, and you can learn. But you say, like, I'm not really engaged with it now. I can engage with it in the future. No, Shemaloti Panim. Maybe you won't be few. Few. I mean, yeah. I mentioned this also. I just want to get everybody thinking about this in a certain way. I'm not going to go into it more now. In a certain way, it seems to me like this whole thinking of Rosh Hashanah is like very different than bitachon oriented thinking, right? Let's go into extreme bitachon. Extreme bitachon means, you know, one of the Gedolim, I think they say about Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he needed more parnassa. So he walked outside and he looked for an evade, he looked for a lost object, right? And there were definitely things in Navardic, things like that, that again, when I say extreme, I don't mean wrong. It's not for me to judge there, but there are different shitas in bitachon and how far it goes. And Gedolim argued about things like that. There's a famous machlokes between Rashash and Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, even and others. So the Alta Navardic was considered an extreme shita bitachon, but let's say that. So I'm a little not clear how the two ideas work together, because Rosh and Oled seems very much to be something like, hey, let's see what's going to happen. I mean, no, I have the ability to see this is what's going to happen. And bitachon means like the Rosh is in control all the time and anything can change. So there are ways to be miyashiv it. It's not keeping me up at night, but I want everybody to feel like the Rosh and Ola thinking does feel different than that thinking. Yeah, I'll give you an example, even current events, and I'm not taking sides over here, but I heard a certain very chashuv Rav say that. Now, I was trying to be medayik his lashon afterwards because I think one way he said this, I think would be correct. One way to say it, I think would be wrong. But if you say, like, let's say someone says there's nothing to be concerned with in New York because, or with social democrats taking over America, nothing to be concerned with because the Rosh runs the world, right? So I would say that's a chisar neroas and olad. I mean, isn't it means if I'm in Germany 1936 and I'm concerned that or from 1933, if a Rub would say, look, these guys, the Nazis, this is not a one-off. They're a problem. Would we look back in history 60 years later and say that they were messed up, or say that wow, he was we should have listened to him? I think most of us would say we should have listened to him. Just take it at face value, right? Ex Rav Wurzburger said in 1933, I see where these guys are headed. Get out of Germany. I think we would look at him today as an incredible person to listen to. And I think someone who had said 1937, nothing to worry about, how bitachon, I think we were looking at him as like foolish, right? So, 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 so it's interesting to say the story's done. No, there's no story's done. The Ron Shem can change anything in a second. We always have to believe in the Yecholos of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We always have to have tikva. That's Drush Binyan Kivoy. We always have tikva. We always have hope. There's always what to hope for, and that's because the Ron Shem can change the situation. But we're getting into my mamukim over here, deep questions, just getting everybody thinking. And the reason I'm specifically mentioning it is because I think in the Roas and Nola thinking, I think to get into it a little bit, it is a little different than the Bitachon thinking. Yes, Eric, you mean right? Because it means we're trying to say like, hey, here's something, and it looks like. Again, I don't personally think it's a steer, and I think it's one of those things that when we build ourselves in, a lot of things in life, the yishuv is very, very difficult. The absolute answer of things is hard to know. But a person has to have bitachon, and a person has to know that his mitzvah make a difference. And a person has to know that there's bitachon, and a person has to know there's mitzvah meet a difference. So how exactly you miyashiv that? How do you exactly put them together? Like when is it me? When is it Hashem? Right? It's all Hashem. What does that mean? So we do nothing? No, no, no. Tal malam malam imcha. You should know whatever is happening above is from you. Rabbi Schoonmaker says, wait, it's from me? Yeah, and Rabbi Schoonmaker says, it's from me. You killed him, and so I killed him. Or there's many, many chazals and psukim that go this way, that way. They're deep things. I don't want to go too far with it, but I did want to show that. So that's Rosh and Olad. Okay, um, I want to share another
Can I
one
ask a
of,
question?
please.
Why is this part of the defining characteristics of a chacham
Yeah, that's a good
and
question.
not just, let's
Kind of,
call it
I'm kind of waiting for that
a
question.
wise thing to do?
Right. I think a chach. I think good. Let's talk about that for a second. And I'm not finished on that question yet, and I'm thinking about it myself. The question is very bimakom. I think it's our fourth vod on the topic, and now we've been going with Chazal. Chazal say this is a chacham, so it's a chacham. So we believe Chazal. So let's work on it, which is very reasonable position. That's a wise position. Together with that wise position of when Chazal tell you, listen to them. Together with that wise position, also it behooves us to think about it. So I think I think the idea is like this because Rosh Hashanah means to like see something in its complete way, right? Someone could just see. I'll give you an example. In the world of learning, this is just the mashal. In the world of learning, there's something called what I call like shelot tam. I don't know if I use that expression when you were in this year, Aaron, but it means like, why is there a big nun? Why is there a small aleph? That's a shelat tam. That's a very simple question. It's a good question, and Sfarim are written about it. I have a book at home, which I don't use that much, which goes through all those things, all the olives and nuns and things like that. When you read Chumash, there's a big nun. Why are there opposite nuns in Baloscha, right? That's a share like super tam. Like why are there opposite nuns? If you know, oh, opposite nun. Sure, that makes sense. In my Chumash, no, like why? What are they? That's just that's not so much wisdom, right? That's just you noticing something. But then there are deeper questions that a person has to be a lot more b'chachma to understand the nuance and subtlety of things like, right? So in a similar way, there's something called, we understand that someone who doesn't understand reality, who can be fooled, who doesn't see things, is not so wise. And Roas Hanolad is to my understanding, it's like the extent of how well you get the Metzias. I understand the Metzias so well that I can see where something's developing. right? And I'm living my life. I think obviously, and you're living your life with that wisdom, meaning I see right now. Think about it. I'm staying up at night. I want to perform, right? I'm not on vacation. My stated position is I want to perform really well tomorrow in yeshiva, in work, in kiruv, wherever I am, in the classroom. My goal for tomorrow, if you ask me right now, at 11:30, my goal is to be a top performer tomorrow. Good. Yeah. But now you don't see that you're staying up for another hour is going to affect that. That's foolish. That's just a foolish. That's a foolish. That's foolish, right? So now, but a chacham is living a chacham sees what things are and lives with that sense. I think that's the. So it's like it's a extreme reality check. I think that's the how I would. Someone who's not realistic has a lack of chachma, right? You're an idea person, but you can't bring anything down. You can't execute. There's a lack in your wisdom. By the way, just allow me if I may share. I was mechadish something last week with Siyata Shemaya, which I think fits in right very nice now. We say Atachoni ladam dasim lam le'enosh bina chaynenu midcha dea bina v'haskel. Right. Notably, we suddenly put in chanenu. In the second stage, we put in haskel. Right. Atachoni ladam das lam le'enosh bina dea bina. And then our request is Chaninu Mincha Deya Bina, like we mentioned, right? That's like a Shevach, that's a declaration. Kadosh Baruch Hu, you do these things. And now we're asking for Chaninu Mi'idcha Deya Bina and Haskel. So what is Haskel? So I saw in Rav Aaron Feldman's book on Tefillah, and I found the remez to it in Yeshua also recently, that Haskel is like a successful wisdom, like like being matzliach. So what does that mean to say wisdom? So the way I understood that, I'm not Rabbi Feldman is not responsible for this, but the way I understood it was that the idea is like there's somebody who like knows how to bring ideas out to fruition, not just execution, not just a COO. Here's the plan. You're a bulldozer. Get things done. That's not necessarily wise. But the point is the person who sees like how all the who sees how all the pictures. I mean, here's the theory, and there are people who are theorists, right? And there are people who are like can connect and see how things will they see how things will how things will unfold in the real world, and that's what you need for success, because you can't be success here's our great plan, here's our product and here's the plan. Okay, but what's going to happen when we hit the markets? So there's a wisdom of success. It's wisdom. It's not just doing. It's wisdom to be successful, to be practical. That's how I understood it, maybe. And that's why it's not in the first part of the bracha. The first part, because the shorish, the roots of wisdom, are 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 bina and das. Atachon ilam das mohammed lenosh bina. Hatzlach is a later stage. So in our praise of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's that he helps us with Deya and he helps us with bina. But now what we asking for the next stage is already bring it all the way down to Haskell. So the reason I said that would just to me that's something similar to this idea of what a Roas and Olad is. It's like it's seeing the reality out of Sof. Some people see here it is and seeing the reality out of Sof. I see that this can be offensive to someone, but I see how offensive it can be. Okay, we got to keep moving just for time's ways. So I want to share one more area he brings down. Again, he says he writes 23 here, and it's not an exhaustive list, but I want to share one just to expand our concepts, and then I want to share what I think we should work on for the next session. And this is no gaya. And before I go on, I want everybody to think, how are you doing with your Kabbalahs, right? We all make Kabbalahs, Bezrat Hashem and Elul and Yom Kippur. And a person should review those and should think about them often because they're so important. The Talmid Yisrael Salanta, the whole Elul was working towards their Kabbalah. So you fell off your horse, get back on. That's okay. But you have to know what they were. B'chol ma sheshayach lekabbalas alabo, l'kiyam kabbalah shekibel atzmo, yesh hamusag. Right, in the whole parsha of Kabbalot, there is the musag, the concept of Metzias v'avodah shel Rosh Hanolad. You have to be Rosh Hanolad. Kedei leida, in order to know eich lekabel Kabbalot, or kedei largish et nechitza shel kiyam Kabbalot, v'chol ha'shayich lezeh. Beautiful. So Rabbi Schoonmaker says, in the world of Rosh Hanolad, one of the important areas of Roa Esanolad is in the world of Kabbalahs. I want to be makabel something on myself. We as a household want to be makabel something on myself. My wife and I, my husband and I want to makabel something on ourselves. We feel bad for the hostages. Baruch Hashem, besides a few bodies, but thank God right. But a person wants to make a Kabbalah. Okay, good. Let's just whatever. We'll make every Ashiyatsu with Kavana. No, 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 no. That you really have to be Roas and Olad. Like what's going to come up? What's going to block us? What's going to be difficult for us? What can we handle? What can we really, really hold by? And so many Kabbalahs, it's not just everybody knows to make them smaller and smaller, but why are we making it smaller and smaller? What's the so? What's the lumdus? What's the omic? What's the depth of why we make Kabbalah smaller? Because we realize that it's hard to hold with something. So I have to really think, but I don't want to make it too small either. And I want to make something which is meaningful also. Oh, so wow. So I have to make something which is meaningful, and so I have to really have that roas and olad. K'dei leida, eich lekabel kabbalot, to know how to make a kabbalah. K'dei largish and echitzis, and to have the sense of how important it is. That's a great one. You hear that? That's a beautiful line. K'dei largish and echitzis, because I realize without the kabbalah I'll fall. So but what right now I'm sitting on Yom Kippur, I'm the most inspired person in the world. I have no Yetzer Hara, I'm a Malach, I'm not eating, I'm not drinking anything. I don't need a Kabbalah. You see, feel it. I will feel that. No, 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 no. Because I'm a Roa during Yom Kippur, I'm still a Roa Sanolad to realize, you know what, right now I feel like this, but I'm not always going to feel like that. So I have to make a Kabbalah myself. I'm Manichom, I have to make a Kabbalah myself to continue doing what I want to do. And now that's Lahargish and Echitzis. Therefore, that gives me the sense of how necessary it is. Okay, everybody feel that thought. It's a wonderful thought. Ritzi Meyer says it's so true, right? Because very often we aren't sitting with ourselves, so we don't realize in what situation we'll really be in, and therefore we don't realize I don't need a Kabbalah. I'm good. No, you're not good. You're good now, but you're not going to be good in a month. You're not going to be good in 2 months. So make a Kabbalah. Okay, good. Now, what Kabbalah do you make? You have to be Roas and Oled very much to realize what Kabbalah you can handle. Okay, that was just something to keep in mind for the future. But here's the one I want to work on. Okay, I'm going to read what he says. B'chol riboy ha'atzim shel pirtei avoda, in the incredible detailed work of Bein Adam Lechavero. Of course, there's a lot of Bein Adam Lechavero of Roas and Oled. In order that all of the result of my thoughts, my words, and my actions will be as Hashem wants. Right? We want to give a good feeling to people. And all of us have the potential to give good feelings to others. If it's through our actions, through our words, especially our words, right? A person has an enormous, enormous ability. Olam chesed yiboneh, of creating a world of chesed, of creating a world of goodness, of happiness. Okay, but now how do I do it? Right? I have to be Roas and Olad. I have to think what situations are going to come up, when I can give off good feelings, when I can't. How am I in my busy schedule going to find time for people? I have to be Roas and Olad, right? If I think right now I'm feeling pressure, wait, but I'm going to be at a wedding soon. Oh, that'll be a chance for me to catch up with that. That will be a chance maybe at lunch. I will. Next month I will. Rosh Chodesh might be a time, right? Otherwise, I sit in this. I want to give a good feeling, but I'm not thinking through it, and I'm busy, so I end up not. I didn't have that conversation I wanted to have. You weren't Rosh and Oled. If you would have been Rosh and Oled, you could plan yourself and think when you'll have the ability to put in all that nice stuff. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings either. Well, that for sure you have to be Rosh and Oled, right? You can, there's the sensitivity right now to what you're saying, and then there's will someone be offended by it? It's scary. I'll tell you a story just as written, and I hate to say just a story which sounds negative. There was a tremendous, tremendous gadol, really tremendous gadol named Lazer Gordon, who was the founder of the Telz Yeshiva, and he's one of the Gaonei Hazman. Reb Chaim Brisker, when his son Reb Moshe Soloveitchik, the father of Soloveitchik, got married, he honored him to be Masader Kedushin. And he said, because of it, which is an unbelievable covenant, probably the greatest covenant you could get in the rabbinic world was that Reb Chaim would ask you to be the Masader Kedushin for his illustrious son Moshe. And he said because of his Avos Torah, his love of Torah was so great. So he founded Telz, and he fought Haskalah, and he did many, many great things in his life. Anyway, the end of his life was a little bit tragic, that he went to England because there was a fire in Telz, and he needed to rebuild the yeshiva, and he wasn't received so well there, and he passed away in England. In fact, he's buried in England. I don't think they interred him ever. He's buried in England. Anyway, but listen to this. What happened when he was in England? He was there. Accommodations had been made for him, and he ended up by someone's house. And the person who he ended up with told him, that I was a shochet in Telz, and I was Neman shochet, And you looked when you became the Rab, you looked at my challah, you looked at my knife, and you said, is this a good challah for me?" Meaning, like, is this the standards that I want? Like, you put it down, and he said, and it hurt me. The fellow told him, and Rav Lazer Gordon obviously asked for forgiveness, etc. That was one. And then the next day he went to shul, and there was someone named Abram Abba Werner, I think, who was the Rav of the shul, and he said, "Do you know?" It's an incredible story. It's very touching. He said that, "Do you know that I was the Ab Beis Din in Telz, and I thought I was going to become the Rav, and then they brought you from Slobodka to be the Rav, and I was very hurt." And Laser Gordon said, "I had no idea, and if I would have known, I wouldn't have taken the position." So it's amazing that that Laser Gordon, this big tzaddik, major gadol, this is written. I don't, it's written. These stories are written, so we could say them. And it kind of afuch, you see, I would understand it's Ragli Chasida of Yishmor. Hashem protected his holy ones and brought Laser Gordon before he passed away to the situation that some of the people had, low level or whatever you want to call them, subtle kindness on him to settle. And Hashem should help us from not having, we all make mistakes. We're all interacting with people, and you never know. In this shalom bias thing, you say something, your wife is offended, your husband's offended, your child's offended, your Talmud's offended. I know it's something I have to watch out for, and you have to really dive in a lot. But anyway, the point over here is, besides the general vote, is the Roas Hanolad, right? We have a great ability to make people feel good. We have a great ability to make people feel not good. And Roas Hanolad is part of it. So I gave the beginning, and there are a lot of details to that. So what I want everybody to do is, I don't think just by me like listing off is going to help everybody. I think you have to, like I said at the beginning, listen carefully, everybody. Roas Hanolad is a way of thinking. It's really and that's what I see from C. Meyer, but I see myself that it's an encompassing, it's a way of thinking, right? Either you're a chacham in this way, or you're not. So we got to used to it. So I'm highlighting. I don't know if we're going to do this each time, but I'm highlighting areas for us to focus on. But now it's really dependent on you. So you have to now. Each of us has to like take time over the week and start thinking about that. Wait, how does Roas and Nolad? I never thought about that before. Wow, I've heard so many shmuzim on Abbas Yisrael and being nice and sensitive and things like that. Roas and Nolad interfaces with that? I didn't know that. Okay, good. So now we have a major tzaddik telling us, yeah, 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 definitely. There's a ribuy atzim of interface between Roas and Nolad and Ben Adam Lechavero in terms of I'm focusing a little bit more being native to others and not being garam them tsar. So I want everybody to think of like 4 or 5 examples to themselves in their lives, right? 4 or 5 examples. How can my Roas and Olad help my Ben Lechavero on the doing more good? 4 or 5 examples. How can my Roas and Olad help me not hurt people's feelings? Okay, that's the task. And if we come out from a week of work with those 2 things, that'll be very powerful, right? Because again, we're probably sitting at a point where I didn't see any interface at all between Roas and if someone's Roas and Olad is a mid and Chachma. No, 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 no. It's a mida in Ben Al Machavero, right? It's going to affect. Excuse me. It's a mida in Ben Al Machavero. It's going to affect your Ben Al Machavero. How much you Roas and Olad is going to affect how much chesed you do, and it's going to affect how much tsar you do or don't cause. But everybody has to bring that home to themselves with 4 or 5 examples. Okay, I got to run, and thank you very much, everybody, and Hatzach Rabba. Okay, let's get deeper and deeper into Savoda. Shalom.